I'm trying to empower everybody's inner psychic, because I'm convinced if there is an afterlife, when you go there, you won't be asked, how well did you copy this system? How well did you follow this person? You'll be asked, how true were you to the utterly unique miracle of DNA you are? There's a whole underground network that we don't know about of people who seem to be able to dream the future or sense it before it's going to happen. Now, dream decoding is the first step to falling in love with the magic and mystery of who you are, in all its flaws, and also realizing you're not perfect. All of us human beings are a work in process with shadow side. There's a shadow side in all of us, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. We're not ashamed of nightfall, are we? It's life. There's a day and there's a night. That's who we are as human beings. And during night, things grow. It's getting that nighttime, that dark, that difficult potential within you to work for you. That's the challenge. Because once you do taste dream work, once you stop dismissing your dreams as trivial nonsense and start realizing that perhaps, just perhaps, they might have something important to tell you, your life is never the same again.
Dreams are one of those things that we all experience, yet we know so little about. In this episode, we dive in deep into the dream world. We talk about how to access our psychic abilities. We talk about precognition, which is a psychic ability that allows us to perceive into the future. Imagine if we all had the capability to remember our dreams, extract the meaning, and apply that into our life. What are our dreams telling us about our past, our present, and our future? In this episode, we brought on a dream decoding expert, Theresa Cheung, who has been researching into this field for more than 3-4 decades. This is a person who has written books in the number triple digits. She has been in this field deep, and I'm so excited to bring her wisdom to you and really explore what our dreams mean. This is a topic that has fascinated me for so long, and I'm excited to be able to share this message with you guys, with Theresa Cheung. I know you're going to enjoy it. Theresa Cheung, welcome to the podcast. What are you most excited about today?
I'm excited to talk to you and your listeners about the awesome power of the dreaming mind and how it can, once you know how to work with it and understand it, it can utterly transform your life in every way.
Yes, and we're going to be talking about the mystical, the dream world, the paranormal. Speaking on that, I heard you once say that your mission in life is to make the paranormal normal.
Yeah.
And you know, it's amazing the body of work that you've done in your life. You've written over 100 books. I just want to let that number sit in. 100 books. You consider yourself a serial spiritual writer, pumping out books and just investigating these topics that so many people might, stay away from because they don't understand it. But now, through your work, through, I think, the elevated consciousness that's emerging on the planet right now, we're more open to normalizing these topics. And I wanted to ask you, why now? Why do you think now is the time that humanity is reinvestigating the paranormal and bringing it to our day-to-day life?
Many reasons, but the most short-term reason, of course, is COVID. The lockdowns had a dramatic effect. And for me, as a serial spiritual writer, you're right, I do. It doesn't feel like work. It's who I am. I research and I write about all these topics of the inside-out approach to life. And I've been writing best-selling books in this area since the early 2000s. And I've had my following, my readership, and people engaged in what I do. But it wasn't until COVID that suddenly everything changed. I was actually ready, because I've written so many books, you're right. How many more Theresa Cheung books can there be out there of saying, well, maybe it's time to regroup. And I was developing my podcast. I was looking at developing other areas of my life. I do believe that life's constant change. And then suddenly it was like I was being sucked right back in. And all these things I'd kind of, forgive the pun, dreamed of doing, going on national TV, doing a viewer call-in about dreams, talking to celebrities about dreams, being invited to talks into companies, leading companies to talk to the staff about the weird dreams they were having. This happened. CEOs of major companies just got in touch because some of them had my dream dictionary lying around, which before COVID was like, oh, that's nice. It's interesting. But during COVID, people were confronted with themselves as never before. Our health was in jeopardy, our livelihoods, everything material that we'd relied on for our definition was up in the air. And all you have left then is, who are you? Why are we here? And then, of course, because we were, maybe, during lockdown, if we were on furlough, we were having more leisurely mornings, which means more REM sleep. And when you have more REM sleep, that's rapid eye movement, what happens? You dream, and you dream big. And I think the dreaming mind seized that opportunity and think, oh my goodness, I've been trying for years to make my impact in your life. Now's the time, and I'm going to send you these massive symbols, even nightmarish symbols, to get you to take note. And it hasn't stopped. People have noticed their dreams, wanting to know why they're dreaming, what they're about. And I love it because it's not stopped.
Yeah.
Because once you do taste dream work, once you stop dismissing your dreams as trivial nonsense and start realizing that perhaps, just perhaps, they might have something important to tell you, your life is never the same again. And people have tasted that, and there's no going back. So now I'm out there championing dreams in every way I can. And that's why I'm so grateful that you've decided to do an episode on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I love this so much. And it's almost paradoxical because we think of dreams as in when we're in this sleeping state. But you always hear about people who are having these crazy, vivid, lucid dreams, and then they wake up from their dream because maybe their dream gets too intense or too nightmarish or too pleasurable even. So it's paradoxical in the way that dreaming is associated with sleeping, but what's actually happening on a symbolic level is that we're waking up through our dreams, and humanity is waking up, and dreams is a third of our life. How long do we dream?
We dream 5 or 6 times a night, every night. And if you're not recalling them, I can give tips about how to recall them, because actually research has shown that dream recall is healthy for your holistic well-being. It's a sign of well-being. It can help ease anxiety. It's very important actually to recall your dreams. So if you're not recalling them, chances are your life is quite stressful and you've buried that sort of sacred inner world, and it's time to reconnect with it. And that's what dreams are. They are your nocturnal therapist, your soul, for want of a better word, trying to talk to you. And the big issue with dream work is that people don't understand their dreams. And that's why whenever we don't understand something, we either fear it or we dismiss it as nonsense. And both approaches are, it breaks my heart, because your dreaming mind is precious wisdom from your soul, from your heart. Your dreaming mind notices things in the day that your conscious mind buries or doesn't want to face or is frightened of facing or acknowledging. But however, when you fall asleep and your conscious mind goes to sleep, but your unconscious is always awake. You see, you are actually awake unconsciously 24/7, and dreams show that you are. It shines a nightlight on all these things that you need to reflect on for your personal and spiritual growth. But the reason we dismiss it is because it doesn't make sense, because dreams speak to us in this weird symbolic language. But it really is very easy to interpret your dreams. You've got to think of each dream like a poem. If you were back at school and you were given a poem, you first read it and you thought, that doesn't make sense. Let's talk about Coleridge's Kubla Khan, for example. When Xanadu did Kubla Khan, that's the most famous vision in a dream poem. It doesn't make sense until you spend time reflecting on it line by line, symbol by symbol. And then each symbol underneath it has another symbol. And that's how you interpret your dreams, however mundane they are. Even if you have a dream of just walking down the street and going into a sandwich bar, and that there are dinosaurs in the sandwich bar, and anything's possible in a dream. What you need to do, if this was a poem or a work of art, and I was given a school assignment to be an art critic or a literary critic, how would I interpret it? Well, I'd look for puns, I'd look for metaphors, I'd look for association, I'd look for pathetic fallacy, all these things we were taught at school. And that's how you get to the true meaning. And that's where the gold and the magic is of dreams, the treasure underneath. Because you realize, oh my goodness, my dreaming mind has thought up all this and painted this incredible story for me, because it wants me to understand that I'm far deeper and far more mysterious than I realize.
Yeah. Yeah. The rabbit hole goes so deep with dreams. And just, I want to unravel a bit like how you got to this work in a way, because, you know, I know you were raised by a family of psychics. You were going to mediums from a very young age, which is so cool because you had an entry point. And
I did.
Sometimes, even for me, I had an entry point into spirituality with having my mom being a Kundalini yoga instructor, a sound healer. And it's those entry points that sometimes I think I take for granted. And it's like, in a way, I think life had a way of organizing things so that we could be doing the work that we're doing in the world right now. And you ended up in King's College, Cambridge, you know, lottery ticket. You were there, you were studying theology. Theology is all about the study of religion. So I wanted to ask you about like this universality of religions. What did you start finding? Because, you know, I think you started off in Christianity and then you branched off into exploring others. Like, what was this underlying pattern between all religions, and try to unify, you know, these truths that the religions are pointing to?
Well, I grew up in a very spiritual family. You know, the idea that there's a part of us that survives bodily death, you know, and that's mediumship, and that there's a part of us that is infinite and expansive. And dream interpretation was just what we did. I'd wake up in the morning, and the first thing to do is we talk about our dreams, you know, and then consulting astrologers, tarot cards, mediumship. But however, as I grew up, I loved this approach to life, but I never felt I had any gifts myself. I couldn't communicate with dead people. I didn't feel I was particularly intuitive, but what I had was an insatiable fascination with it. And I was home educated, so I don't know how, because this was in the 80s. I somehow got a place. I did my exams by myself at home. I was self-taught, but it must have, you know, you're right, through the generations. I do come from a family of people who've been very seeped in the mystery of our existence. My mother was Indonesian. From that culture, she came from a long line of mediums and psychics, and it probably was in me. And I think at my interview at Cambridge, they must have loved my joy and passion to learn more. I was also very alternative, and one thing about Cambridge is that they're very open-minded, and I think I picked the right college. Again, I must be intuitive, because I just picked King's because it was the most one I'd heard of, because I think Isaac Newton went there. And I had no idea that King's is the most open-minded. They were the first college to accept women, for example. So I went there with this passion to learn more, but also I was leaning towards Christianity, because it made such sense to me. It was such a beautiful approach to life, that you know, God loved us so much, he sent his son, and through believing in the Son of God, our sins can be forgiven and we can have eternal life. It seemed very simple, but as often happens when you study religion academically, as I then did, I also was introduced to Hinduism, Islam, all the other beautiful religions. And each time it was like, this is mind-blowing, this is beautiful. And I came to the position that I think many people are now, where I'm spiritual, not religious. I think they're all paths to the same. They're all paths to finding inner peace and meaning. And I could now no longer identify myself with a specific religion. I'm spiritual. That's how it is. And I fell in love with the idea of each of these religions have dreams, are so powerful. You know, so I kind of honed in on that, because I've always been a vivid dreamer. I love my dreams. And sometimes I'd wake up in the morning and think, oh, I want to go back to the dream. I don't want to get on with the day. You know, the dreams were so interesting. So I kind of fell in love with that. And I was blessed that because I had the academic background at Cambridge, I was able to reach out, first of all, to scientists and neuroscientists to, you know, find out from them what happens when we dream. Why do we dream? That was really interesting work. And also I was able to get offered book deal after book deal. I've been very, very blessed throughout my life to work with almost every single major publisher in the world. But that was in a time when they weren't really, you know, mystical books were a bit of an embarrassment, because my books came out and the publisher never promoted them. I was
Wow.
never one of these big signings, you know, how you hear of a celebrity signing. There was never any publicity budget. It was just like, let's put this out in the catalogue. And then what happened is, without any publicity, like, my first Sunday Times was An Angel Called My Name, which was literally, people over time have written to me with their supernormal stories and their belief in the afterlife. And I collated these stories together and wove it in with my own personal journey. And it went to number 4 on the Sunday Times, just like that. I remember actually sitting there reading the Sunday Times because I was very interested in, what's the top 10? And because my publishers were so uninterested in me, they hadn't even thought this would happen. I was reading, I thought, Theresa Cheung.
What?
I read it in the paper. And then the next morning, my publisher was like, oh, we can put Sunday Times on your book now. But even that wasn't enough for them they were kind of embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about right now. The fact I'm talking to someone as cool and as young and as hip as you about this. Publishers are no longer embarrassed about what I've written about.
Yeah.
Whereas, 20 years ago, they were. It was kind of like, this isn't really what we can write about, But they kind of published me because, she's been to Cambridge. So I was kind of like this anomaly for them. She's been to Cambridge, but anyway. But what happened then over time is they put me in the mad lady with cats. And when I was signed by Penguin, I had all these big ideas. What do they sign me for? Psychic cats. But I did it because through that book, I tried to make the book bigger than just about cats. I do believe that animals are great healers.
Yeah.
But you see, that's what happened to me. I was put, and then as you get to a certain age, if you have older listeners, they put you in this category, and then they sign young people in this area with massive social media followings. But then realizing that my books are actually selling more and not quite understanding. And then we had COVID, and then suddenly it was like, I remember Theresa Cheung, let's bring her out. And I haven't looked back since.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot of it has to do with the quality and detail of the work that you've put in throughout these 25 plus years, investigating, researching.
Absolutely.
I fell in love with the concept, the book that you put out in collaboration with a neuroscientist on Premonition, the Code of Premonition. And I read that because we had recently talked with Dean Radin, and he was talking all about these paranormal activities that he was studying. And I was also on the same boat as you, where I started getting bombarded in my life with people that had psychic abilities, people that could channel, people that were mediums. And then we've had a lot of them on the show. And even in my day-to-day life, I'll be talking to someone, they're like, yeah, I have gifts. I hear messages from God. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like, I want to learn how to do that. But sometimes I felt like I was coming from a place of lack. Like, I don't have that ability.
Me too. That's how I felt. And it's been the journey of my life, actually. I think that psychic ability and self-belief go hand in hand.
And will, yes.
So the journey to falling in love with yourself and believing in yourself, which I'm honest about this in my books, and my readers know about my struggles and doubts. It's taken me, I would say, until my 6th decade to finally get there. So if you are listening and you doubt yourself and you don't think you're good enough, hang in there. You will get there over time if you just pay attention and notice. It takes time. And I was certainly like that. I was always coming to every book I wrote from a position of lack. I'm not a medium. I'm not a psychic. I'm not a scientist. I'm just fascinated by this. And I would downplay my intuitions, my dreams. I mean, I've had dreams coming true, but I would downplay it as coincidence. I'd second guess it.
Yeah.
And a lot of my books are about this journey. And then it was suddenly, when I started collaborating with the likes of Julia Mossbridge and Dean Radin, this was 4 or 5 years ago, and I suddenly realized that I actually had what I was looking for all along. It's like that classic dream movie, The Wizard of Oz, when she realizes that it's always been within her, right at the end. What she's looking for, what you're looking for is often right in front of you. But it's a journey to get there. But you're right. I think self-belief is so key with this, because if you haven't got that, it's going to make it virtually impossible for you to be intuitive, to really understand your dreams and to progress in any area of your life, not just spiritual.
Yes. And
it really is.
And a psychic ability that came online for you saved your life. when you were in between two trucks.
That wasn't enough to convince me that I'm a psychic being having a human. That wasn't enough.
Can you tell us a little bit about what happened during that experience?
Well, I was in America at the time, and I was just at the beginning my career, and I had my very first radio interview because I was collating stories about people who have angel experiences, people who believe in angels, and it had triggered the interest of a local radio station. And the night before, I fell asleep, and I had a dream that my mother told me in the dream, Theresa, take the right path. I could hear it. You know, in a dream, how sometimes you can hear it. And, you know, I am a vivid dreamer, and I woke up feeling really happy because it's always felt like an afterlife sign that my mother, because she'd passed at that time, she was departed. But however, in her life, she'd always told me that to take the right path meant do what your heart says. Because at the time I was thinking, you know, because I've loved writing. Should I just go into health writing and diet writing? I've written diet books as well. Or should I follow my heart and do the spiritual? I was at that point. So I thought she was saying to me, take the path that you want, do the spiritual books, go for this angel interview, right? You know, because I'd done many radio interviews about eating correctly, weight management, all that kind of thing. So this was the first where I was actually, would my publishers be angry with me that I was doing this? You know, all this kind of thing. So I drove to the interview, but I was stuck behind a truck, and it was really frustrating me. And then I got to a junction when the way I needed to go was left. That would have taken me to the studio almost immediately. However, it was like my mother flashed into my mind again, and it was almost like I heard that take the right path. And I don't know why I took the right path, and I ended up missing the interview, and I was so cross. And I don't know why, but it's because it was so strong. Later, I found out that truck was involved in a horrible pileup, killing 3 people. Now, I don't know if I would have still been trailing it, but it was the very same truck, because I kind of because it was so slow, I'd kind of got mesmerized by how it looked. And I saw it on the news in the night, and I thought, oh my goodness, a dog actually had gone in the road, and the driver didn't want to hit the dog and had slammed on its brakes. So the car's right behind it, boom. You know, concertina. And, but even that wasn't enough. I just thought, coincidence, I'm making it up. And now looking back, that was a massive, massive moment. That if I just trusted a bit more in my ability to connect to something infinite, mysterious, dreamlike, that it would have been like such clarity, and I would have had the confidence to carry on. Instead of what happened is in the next 15 years, as I raised my children and continued writing books, I was doing my books almost like embarrassed about them. Nobody really knew I was doing all these encyclopedias and stuff. I was just pumping them out.
You had to pull a J.K. Rowling and change your name on the title.
No, I kept the same name. I did keep the same name, but you know, when people ask me about, you know, it was always a joke, or she writes about woo woo. You know, I never, and I would join in on the joke. I wouldn't stand up for the woo woo, which I do now. I'm fierce about it. Yeah, this matters. We are mind, body, and soul, and I'm so glad now that I have got to that self-belief. But it was only during COVID, when I started to do my own podcast, actually, it's a very low-key one, and I started to talk to all the neuroscientists, like Julia, like Radin, like even Alexander, and psychologists and everything, that I started to get that self-belief, because I was doing something just from the heart. Because during COVID, I wanted to give to my readers, because book publishing slowed. I wanted to give them something. So I would just, you know, read out stories or talk to Julia. We'd just have a chat over a cup of tea and publish it, or Dean. You know, Dean actually is very funny. Everybody thinks he's a very funny guy. So I did that just as a labor of love, and it grew and grew, the podcast, and, you know, became, certainly in no way in your league, but certainly kind of within its field, became quite loved. And people said it helped them during the lockdown. And that gave me, I suddenly realized, yes, this is what I'm meant to do. And then the belief grew. And, you know, it was almost like magic. I don't know that much about manifesting, but it was when the self-belief grew and I could actually see myself confidently talking about these things that I suddenly was on Capital Radio. Would you believe? Talking to Roman Kemp. I was talking to, you know, Bella Hadid posts my dream dictionary. But it coincided.
Huh.
It was almost like the universe was waiting. We're so bored of this, Teresa. Will you wake up and start trusting? You know, but I had to, but I do think I had to go through all this self-doubt for a reason. So I can understand when people come to me and they're nervous or they're afraid or they've had a dream that terrifies them or they don't believe that there's soul and they say it's all rubbish or trivial, because I've been down all those avenues. You can't, when you go to a place like Cambridge and you study these things academically, or you work with scientists, you know, or dream experts. And I've worked with dream experts who believe that dreams are just random firings of the brain. And I want to hear their opinion, because I don't want to come in, you know, I think that's terrible when you come in very closed-minded. I'm still very open-minded. But I now, when I hear these opinions, I do come from a position of, well, this is my personal experience, my trust, and I know what makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Leaving the other stuff that it's all random, there is no meaning, doesn't make me feel good. And that's, I guess, what at the end of the day, what is the proof, isn't it? If it gives you inner peace and it gives you direction,
that's what it is.
That is the proof. Yeah. And everybody has to find that personally in their own way. There is no right path to heaven. There is no right way to be psychic.
Yeah.
And I do get a bit frustrated actually with the spiritual movement as it is today, where there are a lot of people standing up and said, I have a vision, therefore I have authority to tell you how to get to heaven, how to be psychic. I'm trying to empower everybody's inner psychic, because I'm convinced if there is an afterlife, I think there is, with all the data that we have. When you go there, you won't be asked, how well did you copy this system? How well did you follow this person? You'll be asked, how true were you to the utterly unique miracle of DNA you are? You know, no one is you, and that is your superpower, is what I will say over and over again. And loads of people struggle with that because they don't think they are enough, that just being me isn't enough.
Yeah.
And I will, until I gasp my last, that's what I'm trying to show people, that just being you is enough.
Yeah.
Just falling in love with yourself is enough. Just believing in yourself. Because when you do that, you raise your vibration because you're happy. And when you're happy and fulfilled, you aren't a drain on other people. You kind of liberate them as well from having to worry about you. So actually caring for yourself is a very unselfish thing to do. And I also believe in this collective unconscious, that every time one person believes and raises their vibration, it raises the whole collective.
Yes.
It's like when the first person ran the 4-minute mile. Nobody could do it before.
Yeah.
Roger Bannister, wasn't it? He smashed the 4-minute mile. And then there's something that when one person do it, it's like a domino effect. Now it's kind of commonplace that people do it.
Yeah.
It takes that one person, and that's why I said it all does start with you. Your journey to self-belief, self-care, self-love, self-confidence, belief that there's more to you than just your body. When you get there, you are actually contributing to collectively raising the entire vibration of the planet. And that's why there is healing power in prayer. There is healing power in the more of us meditate and become reflective.
Yes.
It's not a waste of time, as many of my practical, skeptical friends tell me.
Yeah, I love how this intertwines with so much of, you know, what we're learning about human potential. And I think it's so fascinating what you're doing right now, because in a way you're a pioneer that is breaking down the old paradigm of let's compete over here, separation. So in the past, maybe the spiritual writers and the mystics and the shamans, they would stay in their corner, and then the scientists are over here like working on their things. Many of your books have been collaborations with mediums, with neuroscientists, Dr. Julie. So I love how it's like bridging that science and spirit in a way that is collaborative, and you can bring your perspective. You have your stories from all your community, your readers. And then, for example, in the Code of Premonition, Dr. Julie will come in and she'll explain the physics of time. I think it was just such a fascinating intermingling of backgrounds and perspectives, and
I love that friendship I have with her, because we're still in touch and we still do the odd thing together, and it's just such a bonkers pairing of females, and I wish we did more together, because she's so busy and I'm on my path, but there's such a bond. I do find in the Premonition Code, actually, I come across as quite comic, because it's most of the book is me going, I don't understand.
The science is heavy.
And she's going, there, Theresa, with your purple unicorns. And, okay, here we go. Deep breath. Theresa, it's very, I think there's a humor behind it. And it was interesting, because this book was actually reviewed in scientific journals. And they did not know how to review me. The old me, you see, that was more lacking in confidence, would have been deeply hurt in that, for example, when I think a prominent scientific journal saying, this book, amazing Julia Mossbridge, and Theresa Cheung, who in quotation marks wrote an encyclopedia of the psychic world. The less said about her, the better. But however, in my world, the spirit and destiny world, Julia was minimized as boring. Science is boring. So it was very funny that we both got hit in the stomach in our different ways, and we both found great humor in that. And what's nice now is that the scientific world is actually being much kinder to me, and I'm getting scientists asking to go on my podcast to talk about their research. And Julia also is gracing the covers of spiritual magazines now. It's wonderful. A neuroscientist.
Power of collaboration.
So I love that. But I kind of do wish in a way that the Premonition Code had come now, because we did it in 2017. And as I said, my main publisher is Harper Collins. I've also been published by Schuster, Random House, Hodder, all of them. And I tried to pitch this idea of the two of us working together to the really mainstream publishers who, for the simple reason they have the distribution, you can get out there. All of them said, this is too far out. Can't do it. And it was Watkins, which I believe you mentioned, which is a more niche mind, body, soul, that took that leap of faith. I think if the Premonition Code had been published now, it would have immediately have been accepted. It would have got the budget to get it out there in a bigger way. But again, it's been kind of word of mouth. Again, no publicity for it. It was just us two creating a website out of love for it. It is quite an unusual book, and we did it in 2017. But Julia, because she's quite precognitive, she said, this is going to be a slow burn, Theresa, just watch. And it's the most bonkers book you'll ever find. I challenge anyone to find a book quite like it.
It's unique, for sure. It's so unique, but it's fascinating, because speaking on psychic abilities, speaking on human potential, premonition, as it's highlighted in the book, is this ability to see beyond our present time and see into the future, and how maybe the past influences the future and the future even influences the past, where there is this realm of no time, no space, and consciousness.
When you look at it from a scientific perspective, time is a circle. Everything, sorry to interrupt. I have a habit.
No, you're good. No worries. I did want to ask you regarding these findings in premonition, and open people's minds to what's actually possible for us. And in the book, you actually train people on how to become what you guys call positive precogs. So what does being a precog entail for people? And, how can we open our minds to what's possible?
Well, this may be a bit dated, but if anyone's watched the film Minority Report with the precogs, there's a Tom Cruise movie. Oh gosh, shows my age. It's about three precogs who kind of predict crime before it happens, and there's a pre-crime unit. So the precogs see a crime happening somewhere, and then Tom Cruise goes out and stops the crime happening before it does. It's a very futuristic world. The Minority Report. I'm sure there will be some geeks out there who will know it, because it's a kind of a sci-fi classic. But a precog is someone who quite literally can glimpse the future. And often that future plays out accurately. And when I was working on the Premonition Code with Julia, who is a precog herself, I was blown away by the number of professional precognitives there are working for major companies.
US governments and...
Yeah. I was amazed. Big companies, I can't give some names, and also law enforcement. There's a whole underground network that we don't know about of people who seem to be able to dream the future or sense it before it's going to happen. Now, you're probably thinking, well, how's that possible? Is the future fixed? And as we try to explain in the book, what you've got to stop is your idea of time being linear, that we remember the past, we live in the present, and we hope for the future. Time, however, if you understand it from a quantum perspective, is not that at all. It is possible for the future to influence the past, and we try and explain this in the book. But basically, the long and short of it is, if you are spiritual, you believe that there's a part of you that is separate from your body. That part of you exists in the future and in the past all at once.
Multidimensional.
Yeah. And a great exercise for this is I would encourage everybody after this interview to record on their phone a message for the person they're going to be tomorrow. And make it a positive message. Just say, hi, it's whatever date. I think you're going to be amazing today. I love you. You're going to have a great day. It's going to be positive. I'm looking out for you. Then the following day, and you may think this sounds simple, listen to that message. And this will give you a sense of the past talking to you. But it will also give you a sense of, well, what if I record another message tomorrow? My future self is already here. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
My future self is like my guardian angel.
It's all happening now.
My future self is here right now. If I do this, if I keep on make friends with my future self and leave messages of encouragement, over time, I'll get a sense of I'm going to be okay because I've got a future self that's looking out for me, that's already recorded a message in time that it's going to happen. To give you this sense of yourself being a long body over time that exists. Again, how can I describe this in a way that's easy? Think of yourself as a child. That was you.
Yeah.
Think of yourself as now. Say, God forbid, any of us pass. Which version of you goes to heaven or afterlife, if you believe in that? Is it the child you? Is it the baby you? Is it the teenage you? Is it the now you? But it's that essence of you that exists independent of all the physical cells you are over time. And that's the essence we're trying to encourage people to tap into in the Premonition Code. The essence of us that is going to exist infinitely. And eternally, and has always existed. And when someone passes, as we spoke before, this may date the interview, but it's the day after the Queen's passing here in the UK, and I live in Windsor, so seeing all the flowers and everything, very conscious of this. That essence may survive bodily death. Perhaps that's just another version of you passing away, and you're going to another realm. It's this long idea of having future selves, past selves that you can actually make friends with. Right? And I hope there is a future self out there watching over me in this interview and saying, oh, bless Theresa, you may have said the wrong thing, but I'm here for you, the good intention. And that's the guardian angels we talk about. It's actually yourself.
Yeah. And
you've got your own back over time.
I love that so much. And when we're talking about getting a glimpse of the future, how does that process come in for people of, like, let's say they want to tune into a relationship or a job that they want to create in some point in their future? How can they use this premonition ability that we can all practice and tap into to be able to align with the path that they most desire, or that's best even for them?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, the great majority of us will experience precognition in our dreams. And after all the research I've done, I believe all our dreams have precognitive elements. We are dreaming about our future.
Yes.
Sometimes it's events, but sometimes it's how our thoughts and feelings are. It's our reaction to events we're dreaming about. So writing down your dreams is essential for you because you are actually kind of dreaming your future without realizing it. And if you keep a dream journal over time, you'll be able to look back and see how your dreaming mind has foreshadowed your future. Now, if you wake up with a dream and it's foreshadowing or making you feel emotions or glimpse the future that you don't like, this is the paradox of premonition. The future is fixed, but it can also be changed. It's a potential future you're dreaming about. And that future is created by the decisions you make when you're awake in the present. And you can change that. Let me give an example. I've got a glass here. If I consciously decide to drop that glass, the future of that glass is to smash. Yeah. However, I could drop it and then at the last minute think, what am I doing? And catch it, altering the future of that glass. And that's how you've got to think, that the future is fixed if you carry along with your current mindset and your current set of actions. However, in every moment, we have the ability to change that potential future. And you could believe that there are all these millions of potential futures out there. There are other universes where all these potential futures play out. Again, to reference a very ancient movie, Sliding Doors. I don't know if you've seen that. It's with Gwyneth Paltrow, where she misses a train and the film then splits in two. She's rushing for a train she wants. The doors close. She misses it and then goes to live her life. In the other universe, she just squeezes through the door. And that very trivial moment changes the course, because getting on that train leads to a series of events that not getting on the train didn't. It's all about timing. So, and I love that because it shows that everything in our life, however trivial, could be the moment that changes our life forever. Just something as simple as missing a train, taking a wrong turning.
Talking to that one person, getting the courage to speak to this person or write this email, like your whole trajectory can take a quantum leap in your reality just by changing the choices we make. And we've talked about the power of choice. I had a curious question that came up while you were explaining that. And we've made a lot of references to movies and TV series because
sorry, I'm a bit of a movie buff. I know.
I think it's because a lot of directors exactly. That's exactly where I was headed to. Like, movies are symbolic of, even science fiction movies. There's always this underlying sense of truth of like our reality and how reality functions. Think about the big movie franchises we love. It's not the special effects and the actors. Star Wars, for example, it's the Force. What is the Force? Oh my goodness, it's spirit, isn't it? It's that part of us, that's what people come for. And you're right, these big fantasy, we're as a dream decoder, I'm in heaven because we got things like House of the Dragon, we've got Rings of Power coming back, the biggest budget, and the Sandman, Cosmic King of Dreams. And all these are talking to us in the symbolic language of our dreams. So what we don't realize is when we watch these epic things and fall in love with them and get hooked on them, it's because we don't realize we are in the language of metaphor and symbol. Rings of Power, whether you like it or loathe it, it's every image there is like a dream. It's like hidden meaning. It's not just about the character getting on a boat. The boat signifies a journey, a direction in life, and all that. And that's why we love our fantasy, things like The Witcher, and why video games are so great for dreaming. There is a strong link between people who video game, not obsessively, but in moderation, and vivid dreaming. There is a clear link because often video games use these powerful symbols and metaphors and the sense of the journey and threat and all that appears in our dreams. So, one tip I'll give to people, if you want to have big dreams, read fantasy novels where you go into an alternate reality where it's all symbols and metaphors and deeper meanings. Watch fantasy movies. It's dream food. I love that.
Because your dreaming mind throughout the day is trying to find things that it knows will resonate with you. Because you've got to think of all the millions of things we interact with in the day. Why did that one person appear? Why did that one image from a movie I watched? Why not all the others? It's because your dreaming mind is constantly trying to find things that are going to shock you and get you to remember. And that's why sometimes it will resort to nightmares, because it's fed up. It sent you all these peaceful images of butterflies and dancing through fields, and you've just woken up and not noticed. So sometimes using tough love, it's got to go and give you a shock, because it knows darn well if you dream of vampires eating you or that you're a serial killer, you're going to start Googling meanings. And whether those meanings are right or wrong, as long as these meanings aren't saying this is the definitive meaning, I hope not online, it's going to get you thinking. Vampire, undead, what does that mean? Does it mean as a part of my life or a part of myself that I'm not fully engaging with? Does it mean that I'm leeching off other people or other people leeching off? You start looking at all the symbols of what a vampire is. And in that process, you don't realize, even if you don't come to a conclusion about the meaning of the dream, you're unpicking like who you are. You know, dream decoding is the first step to falling in love with the magic and mystery of who you are.
Love that.
In all its flaws, and also realizing you're not perfect. All of us human beings are a work in process with shadow side. There's a shadow side in all of us, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. We're not ashamed of nightfall, are we? It's life. There's a day and there's a night. That's who we are as human beings. And during night, things grow. It's getting that nighttime, that dark, that difficult potential within you to work for you. That's the challenge. That you say have an impulse to be jealous. Well, let's work on that to make it something positive. You can transform all nightmares, all toxic influences within you into a great positive. And you see people, that's why we often admire heroes and everything, because they've struggled. And that's again to go to movies, why we love movies like Lord of the Rings. It's about Frodo battling with himself. It's about that inner journey. Harry Potter, it's about discovering, hopefully not plot spoiler here, Voldemort's me.
Yes.
He's in me. I've got to deal with this. I can't repress and deny it and pretend that everything's, I've got to confront it. I've got to face it. I've got to defeat it or love it or whatever, but I've got to know it's part of me. I mean, the clue's in the scar. But he doesn't realize that.
Let's decode some dreams for a second. I would love to share one of them. This was about a while ago, but you know, I was just coming back from a retreat and I had felt like a lot of energetic upgrades, even in my body. I was feeling tired, but I was feeling like, oh, something's shifting in my energy. And I had a dream where I was walking in this field and all of a sudden just a storm came up above me. And I heard thunder, I heard lightning, and then all of a sudden a lightning bolt just struck through my whole body. And I was like, I felt the pain of like the visceral pain of that lightning going through, channeling from my head to my toes. And it woke me up because I was so shocked, literally shocked, electrified. And it woke me up immediately. So I didn't know what happened after that dream. But what do you think that signifies?
Well, what were you doing in your life? Because dreams are very current. They are actually about what's happening the next day or that week. So what were you doing in your life at the time? Where were you heading? Where were you going? What were you doing in your life? I'd like to know that. And then I can talk about the symbolism of it.
Yeah, I had just recently gone together in Denver, Colorado, with a group of the youth community from Dr. Joe Dispenza's community. And we had a retreat together, and there was like about 30 of us. But for 4 days, we were just meditating together. And that's why I was saying I was feeling a lot of like energetic upgrades, and in many ways that my energy was shifting. Maybe my body was acclimating to the new attunements that were coming through. So I kind of like saw the lightning as maybe that was like a symbol of, you know, something is
absolutely it is. But as I say, with the precognitive element, the dream is also pushing you towards this is going to come to you out of the blue. It's going to feel amazing, and that maybe because it just comes, I mean, because of all the lightning, why did it strike you? I would say it's like it's you finding outside of the group your own identity as a spiritual catalyst, a spiritual light, because there weren't other people in your dreams. You were alone in that field, and yet the lightning struck you alone. So I would say precognitively, what your dream is pushing you towards, find your own path. You've learned from this group, but don't get like this group is everything. It's not, because they weren't with you in the dream. That's very significant. You were alone in the field. This inspiration, you've learned. The field, I would say, is the knowledge that you've got from all the people you talk to. And, you know, in this podcast, you talk to all sorts of people, and that's all great. And they're growing their own shoots, but you get your own lightning bolt, and you will. And it's going to come out of the blue, and you're going to see it all connecting. But it won't necessarily because you're affiliated with a certain person or a certain idealism or a certain group. That's how I would interpret it, as a very individualistic, exciting dream. But in that lonely path, there's going to be a bit of fear and maybe a bit of pain, that people that you maybe thought you gelled with or was right for you at the time are no longer, because you kind of evolved personally, individually. That's very interesting. It would have been different if that dream you'd been surrounded by animals or other living things. You were alone in the field in that dream, and that's the most significant for me. And of course, lightning bulb, you know, lightning strike throughout many religions, it's a sign of spiritual awakening, isn't it? It's a dramatic, classic sign of it. And oh my goodness, that's such an exciting dream. But it's also telling you, you know, learn everything right now, absorb it all. But at the end of the day, your real leap forward is going to be totally individual. It won't be because you've learned a system.
Thank you for that. I needed to hear that. Is there any of your most memorable dreams that you would like to share on the show, and maybe decode a bit?
You mean mine, or what people write to me about?
It could be your personal dreams, if you want to share, or maybe.
Well, it's this belief in the precognitive element of dreams, which has taken me a while to get there, because I very much, when I wrote my dream dictionary A to Z, 20,000 dreams in 2006, I very much was against dreams being predictive in any way, because I didn't want to frighten people. Again, the fear. I felt that if I came forward with this suggests, that it would be dangerous. And it still is. And that's why I don't go too far down that road. I went for the symbolic and psychological interpretation. But what's happened in recent years, the more research I've done and the more I've worked with neuroscientists and the more I've seen that dreams you're dreaming your future, I've started to have incredible dreams. Like, you know, one of the first signs of interest in me was Under the Skin, Russell Brand. And I have no interest in Russell Brand. Honestly, I don't think about him at all. But the day before I got the call, would you like to come on Under the Skin? I dreamt about him. And that was incredible. And as I say, it's, you know, this was 2019, I believe, that it happened. Yeah. It was like, my word. And it's happened time and time again that I've had a dream. And now what I do now is when I do dream of people, I actually contact them. And that actually is strengthening my precognition, because usually when I contact them, they say, oh, I'm glad I heard for you because you were on my mind. Or would you like to do this? You know, not always, it's not 100%, but encourage anyone listening, if you have the courage, again, it's down to self-belief. If you do have dreams that feel really random, or somebody pops up in your dream that you haven't been in touch with for decades, find out about them. Reach out, say hi. You know, there's nothing, I mean, people love it when they say, oh, I dreamt about you. It's actually a big compliment. But that's been really exciting for me. And I usually know when I'm going to get a call up to do a national call in now, because I get really surreal dreams, like I'm swimming through the ocean and the dolphins are with me, and you know, they're handing me phones, weird things like that. And then the next day ITV will call or something. I kind of like know now when I'm going to have a quiet period, because my dreams change. I'm fascinated by that. Yeah. That's the magic for me at the moment personally, but it's taken a while.
I love
to
that you
there.
share that, because it happens to me a lot too, where I'll maybe in a meditation, not necessarily in my dreams, but I'll get a vision of a person telling me, reaffirming me that I'm ready to reach out, and usually things will flow so easily that they'll come on the show and we'll have an incredible conversation. And their work or their books or their talks or their interviews were exactly what I needed to learn and dive into at that certain moment in my life. It just happens like so synchronistically when we follow those messages.
But it's manifesting, isn't it? It's in a way, because when you dream something is happening, it means your unconscious believes it's happening. And that's half the battle. Well, I would say 90% of the battle in life. If you actually believe something's possible, truly deeply at an unconscious level, because when you dream, all the doubts and fears and conscious, rational ego has gone. And when you dream something, I've actually interviewed a lottery winner who dreamt he won the lottery. Because actually winning the lottery dreams are very rare. I mean, I'd love you if you talk to him. He's amazing. He had this incredible dream about winning the lottery, and he was the youngest US Powerball winner. I think it was 26 million.
Wow.
And it played out. And he's now on a journey trying to find out what happens to people on the day they win the lottery. Are there intuitive hunches? Are there premonitions, flash forward? It's really interesting. I wouldn't say to everyone that if you dream you're winning the lottery, because your dreaming mind is more interested in inner wealth than material wealth. But I do believe actually that if you have a goal in life and you are able to set the intention and incubate a dream about it, say you want to give an after dinner speech and you're nervous and you have a dream where it goes flawlessly, that is so powerful because your unconscious knows you can do it. And that's what happens is often in life we mess up because our unconscious isn't on board. Our conscious mind is saying this ticks the boxes. That's like in relationships, like our conscious mind will say this person ticks the boxes.
And our conscious mind is looking for confirmations. Like, yes. I like the ticking the box. And
but your heart's your heart's not getting it. But in your dreaming mind, you confront your heart full on. You confront your soul. Dreams are actually deeply sacred. They're the workings of your soul, your heart, your intuition, whatever you want to call it. These are all the same words for the same thing for me. Spirit, consciousness, they're all the same. Your unconscious tells you the truth. Dreams will never lie. Your dreams are the one friend you have in life who won't sugarcoat things, who won't lie, but who's always there for you and always has your back. And even it sends you a really nasty dream, it's doing it because it loves you. And it knows that this is the only way to get through to you. I talk about King Lear a lot, when he asked his 3 daughters, how much do you love me? And the 2 oldest, who just want his money, sycophants and flatter him. The youngest daughter says, I love you like meat needs salt. And King Lear, being vain, throws her out of the kingdom because she hasn't flattered him enough. But that daughter loved him the most because at the end of the play, just before he goes completely insane, he served a meal and they have no salt. And then suddenly he realizes, because his 2 older daughters have completely controlled him by then. It's very Game of Thrones. They're really nasty. And he realizes that the flattery they gave him was toxic. And the person who truly loved him, he cast out. And that's what your dreaming mind is like. It will tell you truths in a very honest, but sometimes in a way that you don't like to hear, because we all like to be surrounded by people who tell us that we're wonderful all the time, who affirm us, who don't challenge our opinions. Your dreaming mind's not going to do that. It's not going to be like your social media feed. It's not going to be an echo chamber. It's going to confront you every single night because it knows that's good for your growth. You can't grow without getting out of your comfort zone. Dreams are nothing to do with your comfort zone and everything to do about getting comfortable outside your comfort zone, because when you are comfortable outside your comfort zone, that's when your life begins. That's when you become an interesting person with a story to tell and a really authentic life to share. And more often than not, it's also that moment that you realize life is not about the end goal. It's not about the job of your dreams, the relationship of your dreams, the body of your dreams. It's about living with joy and gratitude and passion and curiosity in the present moment. If you can do that, you've got life sorted.
Yes.
For now.
I love that. That was wonderful. Thank you for that wisdom that you packed in there. Theresa, we wrap up every podcast with what we call the final trio, which is sort of like a lightning round. You can really answer the question as long as you want. You can answer it up to a word, to as long as you want. But before we head into that, I want to leave people off with where they can find you, where they can learn more about your work. Is there something that you're excited that you're working on coming out? Where can people go if they want to connect with you deeper?
I'm very prolific, as you say, and do be aware. Look at the date the book was published with me, as I've been around since 1998.
The year I was born.
2 or 3 books a year. Look, brilliant! Oh, so you're 24.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations. That's beautiful. So look at the date that it was, because, I'm one of I have changed my mind. And I think there's nothing wrong with changing your mind in life. That's how you learn and grow. So look at the date and you might find it quite amusing. That's where I was at that age and stage. And that's the trouble with books in a way. They're kind of a statement in time, but I do evolve with it. So, but recently I'm very excited because I'm with my original publisher, Harper Collins, again. And I'm published How to Catch a Dream. And next year, I'm going to publish a book in February 23 called How to Empower Your Inner Psychic. I'm so excited about that.
Is that a collaborative book?
This time it's me on my own, but there are footnotes in it to all the podcast episodes. So it's kind of interactive with the podcast. I've done that to pay tribute to everyone I've spoken to, like Julia, like Dean. It's interactive with that. So I'm very excited about that. But at www.theresachung.com, on Instagram at the Theresa Cheung, and I've also got a Facebook page. So I'm pretty prolific and I'm on a journey, and I'd love it if you jumped along and rode beside me for a while. But I don't want you to ride beside me too long, because I always say to people, don't follow, don't copy, be you. That. And just get from me what you can, and then go. I don't want you to, I actually feel quite uncomfortable when people say, oh, you're wonderful, this is really, I do actually feel like, but you only see in me what's already in you. That's what I always bounce it back. I'm trying to get people to fall in love with themselves, not me or any spiritual teacher, really, themselves. Like a mother bird kicks the baby out of the nest. Like tough, fly.
I love that. That's so cool. So now for the final trio. This is one of my favorite parts of the show, because every single question, there are 3 questions. They're personalized to the guest, to the interview. Kind of when I'm doing my preparation and research, I'll come across something. I'll be like, oh, that could make up for a final trio. The first one that I wanted to ask you is, let's put ourselves in the scenario where you were the head of every single university, high school, academic institution in the world, and they ask you to create a curriculum, maybe a course that should be taught in all schools, all education systems. What would that be, and why?
Well, I would keep a lot of what's there already, but I would make it much more practical and hands-on, because not everybody wants to go to university and be an academic. I think schools are sort of geared to everybody going on that way. But I would definitely, you know what I'm going to say, I would have a dream decoding class. That would be the first thing in the morning, that people have to write down their dreams to overcome creative blocks and talk about them with their classmates or a teacher to understand the messages being sent to them. So dream decoding would be a core part of the curriculum.
I love that. I would have been so happy to have a course on that in school.
Because people would actually. The thing is, whenever I do dream decoding in schools, because I have done, and also in community centres and prisons and everything, people get so engaged. Because suddenly it's about them, because sometimes people, not everybody comes from a loving home, and don't get the attention they deserve. And when you do a bit of dream decoding, people get that spotlight on them. And it can be very affirming and beautiful to realize that they have an inner core, they have something magical and mysterious. And, they are they are a work in progress, and that they're trying to help themselves from the inside out. It can be wonderful to see that with children and people of all ages and stages in life.
Let's set the intention, create the possibility that in the future, dream decoding by Theresa Cheung in all schools. I would love that. I would love to see that.
Yes, please. The
second question I had for you is a ritual. Leave people off with a ritual. What would be one ritual to help people ignite their intuition?
Oh, the one I always give is first thing in the morning, please do not reach for your phone for at least half an hour. That will change your life. I know it's very hard, because especially if your life is ruled by, people answering your requests, etc. But reaching for your phone, what that message sends out to the universe is the needs of the people on the phone are more important than my inner being and my dream decoding. That first half an hour is the time when most of your dreams are going to filter through. Make that sacred. That should be the time to meditate. It's the power hour when everything truly needs to be about you. And if that 30 minutes is enough, if in that 30 minutes you take that phone, you set the tone for the entire day of being a reed blown in the wind, right? I'm not against technology at all. In fact, I love, I grew up in a time when we didn't have mobile phones and it feels medieval. I had to order a book from a library and wait for 3 weeks if I wanted information. No Dr. Google. I lived in that time. So I love that I can talk to you. It's incredible technology. I'm not against technology at all. I do not want to go back to the dark ages, because you hold the world in your hand in the phone. That's a responsibility. So I'm not against it. I'm just against it first thing in the morning, because your brain's very plastic at that time. It's in a theta, relaxed state between sleeping and waking. And the messages you give it then imprint. Just as a child under the age of 5, their brain is in a theta state. So, yeah. Exactly. And negative messaging to children, you know how damaging that is. Somebody says you can't sing, or you're clumsy, or you never make it. That sticks, and you've got to override it. But twice a day, you're in that state. That's just on waking and just on sleeping. So just on waking and just on sleeping, those half an hour, please put the phone away, because the phone isn't about you. It's about people demanding things of you or telling you things. Right? It's not you telling it. Okay, you may send an email or a text or message people, but it's not. It's in response to a dialogue you've got with them. You need to obliterate that for the first half an hour and the last half an hour. That is the most important ritual. Be still. Just get comfortable with you. Do your affirmations or whatever it is. Tell yourself good things are coming your way. Imprint positivity and gratitude, love and connection, self-love especially, in that first half an hour. Your life will change for the better. But because we're busy, we often skip that and think, go grab my phone. And I've been guilty of it. I'm not perfect. I'm guilty of it sometimes. I can't be bothered. Too busy, but I do regret it, because it means that the rest of my day is a bit scatty.
And I love what you said about the power hour and making that sacred. You said a quote that just it goes along that answer of, you said, twice a day we have an incredible opportunity to change our life and reprogram our mind for finding solutions and being positive, just on sleep and immediately upon waking up. Those are the two powerful
what you do
times of the
sets
day.
The tone. On waking, it sets the tone of the day. On sleeping, it sets the tone of your dreams, because it's what you do just before you go to bed. So if you want really, really riveting dreams to decode and explore and potentially suggest your future, be careful what you do in that last half an hour before sleep. Do avoid screens. I mean, reading is great to do then, reading a book. It's actually very relaxing. Or just meditating or dreaming or, chatting to loved ones, whatever it is. Try not to make it about screens and tension and stress and worry. Just calm down, chill out in that last half an hour.
Like, for example, very last important. Night I just sat in meditation, lotus position on my bed, and I listened to a podcast from one of my favorite spiritual teachers. And I like that because I'm getting in a state where I can receive and I'm more open. My analytical mind is not as activated during that moment. I'm going to definitely do that again, more as like a ritual, but
also your conscious mind, you need to switch off it. Your conscious mind has had its say. It's had 12 hours likely in the day to do what it wants. For goodness sake, it's time for the unconscious now, the dreamy, the intuitive. It's balance. If you give the conscious mind too much, the conscious mind is very domineering. It will always try to take over because it has to, because we're in survival mode. I think that we are, kind of in our DNA to be a bit paranoid and to rely on reason and logic, because in times past, yes, being paranoid was really good because you could be clubbed over the head by a tribe member or you could be eaten by a tiger. We lived in dangerous times. So, of course, we needed to be practical, reasonable, logical, right? However, we don't live in a world like most of us don't, hopefully, live in that world now. We have the luxury of knowing when we go to sleep, we can sleep peacefully. So let the unconscious work its magic and flow all over you and unlock secrets for you.
Third and final question for you today, Theresa. This conversation has been amazing. This is putting ourselves a couple decades out in the future, around 2030. Speaking of premonition, 2030, 2040, when, let's say, people of my age, my generation, are stepping truly into leadership positions in society and in the world at large. And this would be a message, a transmission from you to these next generation of leaders. Let's say you were in a space or on a stage in front of these leaders. What would be your transmission for them to become the super dreamers that are within them?
Well, first of all, I would say the planet is in safe hands. A lot of people worry about the future. I don't, because I've been blessed to talk to incredible lights like you. I can see what's happening to younger people. They are waking up to the reality that we are spiritual beings having a human experience as never before. I don't worry. And I think what's happening in the world, or the conflict we're having right now, is kind of like the death throes. It's like, it's just when you shine a light in the darkness, the cockroaches come out. That's what I think is happening. And I think it's going to settle. And I think we're in really good hands. I'm very excited about the future. So I would be saying, well done you for seeing what's real, for seeing beneath the veil, for seeing beneath the surface, and for getting us this horrible materialistic, competitive mindset that dominates, and how you appear to others. If money and wealth and good looks were the answer, why are there so many unhappy celebrities and rich people? It's not. And young people are seeing that. And the social media actually has offered a glimpse of that. They're so tortured often, these really people with millions of followers. What's the point if you haven't got inner peace of having all this? What's the point? And we learned that in COVID as well. What is the point of all this material wealth and all this popularity if you're not happy inside, if you haven't got that inner wealth? So I would say, keep focusing on that inner wealth. Happiness in the present moment is everything, because I study time travel, but time travel is about the now, the power of now, that your future and past are all right here now. And if you are not happy right now in this present moment, why do you think you're going to be happy when you get that job, that promotion, that relationship? Because you take yourself with you. There's that wonderful Milton poem, "Which way I fly, myself am hell." Taking yourself to a different circumstance or a different relationship or doing all these things, they're all good for our life progress. We learn through what we do. But we are human beings at the end of the day, rather than human doings. And being content just here right now, knowing that whatever life throws at you, you have this inner strength. That's true power. And the more of us do that, the more content and peaceful and loving the planet's going to be. And I'd say, go on focusing on your mindfulness, your meditation, your inner wealth. Never mind all this doing this, ambition, whatever. That is important, because often if you do have inner wealth, you actually want to do these things because it makes you feel good. But it doesn't matter if they don't work out. What I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter if they don't work out, because you've always got your inner happiness. You're wealthy already, and everything else is just because you want to do it, because it makes you feel good. But if it doesn't work out, okay, another way, another path, not meant for me. And if things don't work out, you think, that didn't work out because I had to learn something. I just finished with the message that life is lessons or blessings, or lessons and blessings. If you approach life like that, again, you have the key to spiritual awakening, the key to global consciousness raising and everything. Treating life as lessons and blessings, and not, this externalization of getting all our identity from outside in. It's the inside out approach to life. That's the only path to fulfillment. And until you get that, until you understand that, and that's why I love dream decoding, because it's the opening, the portal to it. Because dream decoding is often the first way people start to realize that they are an inner being. They have an inner being. That's why I love it. It's the beginning. Dream decoding is just the beginning. And then you start exploring all these other amazing things. But dream decoding is great because the mainstream accepts it. I don't go onto the mainstream media to talk about angels or afterlife. They don't invite me, although I've written books about it, or tarot, or astrology, or necessary meditation or mindfulness. They're not that in, but they will invite me on about dreaming. It's the entry. Because even if they're rational and skeptical and doubting, they still had a dream and they still want to know what it means.
It's an entry point. Yeah.
And so that's, it's the entry. It's how you get this message out on a wider level is through dream decoding, because people who scoff at what you talk about and what the people you invite onto this podcast talk about, dreams kind of a conundrum with them, because science, despite all its efforts, doesn't know why we dream. We don't need to dream. It's not necessary. They don't know why they dream. But there are stories after stories of dreams changing lives, inspiring the world. As I say, I often talk about Larry Page.
Periodic table.
It happened. Yeah, absolutely. But how does that happen? And science does not know. What they do know, though, if deprived of REM sleep, that's rapid eye movement sleep, when you dream, not all of your dreaming happenings, it leads to depression, anxiety, and increased risk of death. So perhaps the reason we sleep, because scientists don't know why we sleep either, because we're very active in our sleep, our brains are dreaming, our bodies are twitching. They don't know why we sleep. It's a great mystery, but perhaps we sleep because we need to meet our souls and we need to dream. Perhaps the true reason we sleep is because we urgently need to have a dream.
Beautifully said, Theresa. I just wanted to honor you for being a pioneer in what you're doing. I wanted to honor you for your courage, your curiosity. You've been a beautiful mirror for everyone listening, for me especially as well. Just seeing the way that you are willing to explore the paranormal and the mystical and communicate it in such a relatable way that gives people an entry point to go even deeper into themselves. I just wanted to commend you for that, and I really love this conversation.
You were describing yourself. You were describing yourself there. I'm seriously impressed at this young age that you've got this wisdom. You are a light. If you're like this now, oh my goodness, the future. What's out there for you, and inspiring millions. Right, that's the trajectory with this. I mean, at your age, oh my goodness, I talk to my 24-year-old self sometimes with mental time travel. You can do that. You can go back. I was nowhere near at your level of advanced thinking and experiencing and curiosity. So you should be applauded. And this podcast, I hope it really encourages people to wake up to their spiritual
Thank you
essence.
so much, Theresa. I love this conversation.